Hi, this is Robert Polinick, the owner of Brutal Iron Gym. In today's video, I want to give some quick tips on lateral raises. I have a new client working on aesthetics. They want to grow wider shoulders, and in their lateral raises, they're having a hard time feeling and isolating the middle of the shoulder. So our shoulder muscle, we have kind of three parts. There's a front part to it, a middle part, and then the rear part. The shoulders are called the deltoids. So you can talk about the front delt, middle delt, or rear delt. We want to grow the middle portion. When you're facing somebody directly on, it's the middle part of the muscle that creates kind of width to the shoulders. Then when you would turn sideways, it's the back part of the shoulder and the front part of the shoulder that creates kind of like width and thickness in this direction. So if we're wanting to grow shoulder width from face on, what we can do is isolate that middle shoulder muscle. With traditional raises, when we're doing a lateral raise, let me grab some dumbbells here. So lateral raises, what I want to do is I want to start with the weight at my hips. I'm going to raise. Now you'll notice here is I'm raising to where my elbows are still higher than my hands, but neither my elbow or my hand come to the height of my shoulder, meaning I'm not raising way up here. The reason why is I want to isolate the middle shoulder. That is best done when the middle shoulder is raised up towards the ceiling. If I were to raise and then continue to raise the dumbbell, I have to rotate my arm in order to keep getting my arm to come higher. That then puts the front of my shoulder more towards the ceiling rather than the middle portion. So I'm no longer isolating that middle portion. I only want to raise as high as that middle portion still stays pointing towards the ceiling. Now, one of the things that can run into is people will have positional limitations. So when they would try to raise, their arm is going to rotate and their hand ends up coming higher than their elbow. So their raises with dumbbells would actually look like this. And if you notice, my upper arm bone isn't really moving anywhere. It's kind of staying the same. And they're just more so getting a rotation, meaning they're struggling to get the middle shoulder isolated. What we can do in those cases is instead of raising straight to the side of the body, which is where they have limitation in their movement, we can actually raise out to the front. So again, let me grab some dumbbells. And what I would typically look for in a lateral raise, so when I was showing you these earlier, my hand position to my body is relatively out to my sides. So I don't have my hand directly to my side. It's going to be a little bit in front of my body. But if that's impinging on your shoulder, that causes shoulder pain, that causes that rotation. So we said where people will kind of rotate like this. If you look at it from the front, it kind of looks like this. And they'll say they never really feel their shoulders. Of course they wouldn't. So what we can do is modify that by raising actually towards the front of the body, like out in front. You might think that this targets the front shoulder instead of the middle. However, if you look at it from the side, you can see that my middle shoulder is still the thing that's pointing towards the ceiling. Now, if I were to turn my hands neutral and raise directly to the front, then yes, I'm definitely getting front shoulder muscle. But if I keep my palms facing the ground, I'm going to get more middle shoulder, and that can actually alleviate a lot of pain for people. So that's a couple key pointers is we want to have our elbow higher than our hand, so that way I know that the middle of the shoulder muscle is always staying up towards the roof, towards the sky, up and down, because the weight of the dumbbell follows gravity. So therefore, whatever's pointing straight up gets the brunt of the effort. So I want my middle shoulder facing up. That's typically going to be best where my elbow is higher than my hand. But if I try to do that straight outside to my body, and that feels very painful or causes this motion, then I can actually raise kind of diagonally out in front of myself, and that can alleviate a lot of shoulder pain for people. Now, in that position, if you're going to do that, I would actually bend at your hips and your knees. So let me back up so you can see that. So I want to bend a little bit and kind of use the weight of my hips to counterweight the weight of the dumbbells being out in front of me. If you just try to stand like this, you'll end up leaning back, and that doesn't work as well. So we want to have a little bend at the hips, a little bend at the knees, so that way you can kind of keep that counterweight against the dumbbell weight if you're raising that far out in front. I'm going to give you one more tip, but I got to move the camera for this one. Okay, I'm back. So the other tip we can have is when we're doing a cable raise, rather than the cable being all the way at the bottom, and then when you do a raise, let me move that so you can see what it would look like. If the cable's all the way from the bottom, when I would raise out, it's not until my arm is perpendicular to the cable that I would feel the maximal weight load. So that's actually going to be more towards the top part of the range of motion, which then would require that I'm able to actually perform kind of this upper portion. Now we know for people with physical limitations or certain shoulder positions, that could be painful. So how do they make cable raises more effective? Well, you want to raise the pulley. If I raise the pulley just a little bit, just a couple notches, now in this position right here, my arm is perpendicular to the cable. So it's maximally loaded in a lower position in the range of motion. So now, even if I can only perform half the range of motion pain-free, I'm still going to get really good load into my shoulders. This is just 20 pounds, it's already burning. But this is another tip on how to modify your raises if you have any anatomical limitations, is to raise the cable point, and then that way you only have to perform the bottom part of the range of motion, but you get the maximal weight load. So there's a lot of tips, a lot of information, but hopefully it was helpful. If you need anything, just go to our website, www.brittleironGym.com. Go to the bottom of the homepage and you'll see a contact form. You can always send me some messages on there, or you can comment on the video below. But I appreciate that you were watching, and I hope this helps. Thank you.